The mic hit the floor first, then Michael did. 8 seconds. No sound. What just happened? The stage tech near Monitor World froze, one hand still on the fader. The pyro operator backstage felt his stomach drop. 22,000 people in the arena gasped at once, and for 8 long seconds, the only sound was the hum of the lighting grid and the faint crackle of a headset somewhere in the wings. Michael wasn't moving. 2 minutes earlier, the pyro cue had gone perfectly. 4 silver gerbs erupted from the downstage truss, white sparks arcing into the dark, and the crowd roared. The lighting designer hit the blackout on beat, then brought up the back spots in a slow fade. Michael spun into position, microphone raised, ready for the next verse. Everything looked clean, everything looked safe, but no one had checked the floor. The residue was invisible under the stage wash. Fine powder, slick as oil, a 3-foot trail where the pyro fallout had drifted. Michael's left foot hit it mid-spin. His ankle rolled. His weight shifted too far forward, and suddenly there was nothing to catch. He went down hard, right shoulder first, and the mic flew from his hand and skidded into the monitor wedge with a metallic clang that echoed through the PA. The band kept playing for exactly 2 measures. Then the musical director threw up his fist, and the drums cut. The bass dropped out. The synth held one long, fading note, and then died. Silence swallowed the arena. Michael lay face down on the stage, one arm folded under his chest, breathing shallow and fast. The heat from the stage lights pressed down like a hand. A single red gel beam cut across his back. Nobody moved. But here's the part you can't miss. The crowd didn't scream. They didn't rush forward. They just stopped, because Michael had spent years teaching them this moment, without ever saying it out loud. When the music dies, you wait. When the lights drop, you hold. When something's wrong, you don't add chaos. You give the people on stage the space to fix it. And 22,000 strangers all remembered that rule in the same instant. The first person to move was the assistant stage manager, a woman named Carla, fictional, 34, who'd worked 300-plus shows in her career, and had never seen a fall like this. She keyed her headset. Medic to stage left. Now, her voice was calm, clipped, professional. But her hand shook when she lowered the radio. Michael stirred. His fingers twitched. He pressed his palm flat against the floor and pushed himself up to his knees, slowly, like someone testing whether a bone was broken. The arena held its breath again. He reached for the mic, 6 feet away, but his hand stopped halfway. He looked down at the floor. Then he looked at the pyro residue, the faint shimmer under the lights, the powder trail he'd just slipped on, and his jaw tightened. He got to his feet. His shoulder ached. His left knee throbbed where it had slammed into the stage, but he was standing. The crowd started to applaud. Relief, gratitude, love. But Michael raised his left hand, palm out. Stop. The applause died. The silence returned. And then Michael did something nobody expected. He turned to the wings and pointed at the tech crew. Stop the show. The production manager's voice crackled over the headset. We're back in 30 seconds. Stand by for... No. Michael's voice was quiet, but it cut through every frequency. Stop the show now. Carla, the assistant stage manager, stepped into the light. Michael, we can reset. We can... Check the floor, Michael said. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't angry. But every word landed like a drumbeat. Every inch. Front to back. If I slipped, someone else will. And I'm not letting that happen. The production manager came on again. Louder this time. We've got a schedule. The venue has a curfew. We lose 15 minutes. We lose the encore. Michael turned toward the monitor board and spoke directly into the crowd mic, the one that wasn't supposed to be hot. Then we lose the encore. But nobody's dancing on this floor until it's safe. Wait, did you catch what he just did? He didn't ask. He didn't negotiate. He made the call, and 22,000 people heard him do it. 3 crew members ran onto the stage with towels, flashlights, and a spray bottle of distilled water. They started wiping down the floor in slow overlapping passes, checking every seam, every panel joint, every place the pyro dust might have settled. Michael stood at center stage, arms folded, watching them work. The crowd stayed silent. The lights stayed on. Time stretched. 1 second. 1 breath. 1 decision. The venue operations director appeared in the wings, a man named Greg Fictional, 52, who'd worked in arena management for 20 years and had never had a headliner stop a show for a floor check. He stepped onto the apron, just barely visible in the spill from the back spots. "Michael, we need to keep moving. The city has noise ordinances. If we run past 11, then we run past 11, Michael said, not turning around. "I'm not putting my crew at risk. I'm not putting my dancers at risk. And I'm not asking 22,000 people to watch someone break an ankle because we rushed." Greg opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Carla. She shook her head once, sharply. "Don't." Greg stepped back into the wings. The floor check continued. "Remember this. The first rule of live performance is that the show must go on. But Michael had a different rule. The show goes on when it's safe, not before." The crew finished the front third of the stage, then the middle section, then the back riser where the pyro had fired. One of them, a lighting tech named Marco Fictional, 28, found a second patch of residue near the drum kit. He whistled low and waved Michael over. Michael walked across the stage, knelt down, touched the powder with 2 fingers, and held it up to the light. The crowd could see it now, faint and shimmering. A collective murmur rippled through the lower bowl. Michael stood up and spoke into the crowd mic again. "You see this? This is what I slipped on. And if we hadn't stopped, one of my dancers would have hit it next. Maybe 2, maybe more. So yeah, we stopped. And we're not starting again until every trace of this is gone." Notice what he just did. He didn't blame anyone. He didn't shame the pyro operator, or the stage manager, or the venue. He just explained. He made the crowd part of the decision. He gave them the reason, and in that moment, 22,000 strangers became his witnesses. The crew kept cleaning. Michael walked to the edge of the stage and sat down, legs dangling over the apron, microphone resting on his knee. He looked out at the crowd. The arena was still dead quiet. Someone in the 10th row coughed. A baby cried somewhere in the upper deck. The HVAC system hummed. And Michael smiled. "You know what?" he said, voice soft, almost conversational. "This is the part nobody talks about. The part where we stop. The part where we check. The part where we make sure everyone goes home safe. Because that's the whole point, isn't it? You came here to feel something. To forget the world for a couple hours. And I came here to make sure that happens. But not if it costs someone their health. Not if it costs someone their safety. So we wait. And that's okay." The crowd started to applaud again. This time, Michael let them. He nodded once, stood up, and walked back to center stage. The crew gave him a thumbs up. The floor was clean. Carla checked her headset. "Stage is clear. We're ready when you are." Michael turned to the band. From the top of the bridge. No count, just feel it. The keyboardist hit the first chord. The bass came in low and steady. The drums followed, soft at first, then building. Michael lifted the mic. The lights came up, and the show started again. But everyone in that arena knew something had changed. They'd just watched someone choose people over production, safety over schedule, humanity over the machine. But here's what you didn't see. Backstage, in the production office, the venue director was on the phone with the promoter. He stopped the show. 15 minutes. We're behind schedule. The promoter's voice came through tinny and sharp. "What do you mean he stopped?" "We have a contract. We have." He stopped because he fell, and he's not moving until the floor's safe. Silence on the other end. Then fine. But if we lose the encore slot, that's on him. Greg hung up. He looked at Carla, who just walked into the office. Is he always like this? She nodded. Every time. If it's not safe, he won't do it. Doesn't matter who's paying. Doesn't matter what the contract says. He's not risking his people. Greg sat back in his chair. I've worked 300 shows. I've never seen a headliner stop for a floor check. That's because most headliners don't fall first, Carla said. Michael did. And now he's making sure no one else does. One look, one breath, one decision. Out on stage, the show rolled on. Michael moved through the choreography with the same precision as before, but now there was something else, an edge, a focus, a reminder that every move mattered. The dancers felt it. The band felt it. The crowd felt it. Because they'd all just been part of something real, something human, something that said your safety is worth more than the schedule. At the 63% mark, about 15,000 characters deep into this story, you need to understand what that moment cost, not in money, not in time, but in power. Because when Michael stopped the show, he broke the unspoken rule of live entertainment. The venue controls the space, the promoter controls the money, and the artist performs. But Michael flipped that. He took control. He said, "Not on my watch." And everyone from the crew to the crowd, to the people in the production office, had to reckon with that. The countdown had started the moment he hit the floor. 8 seconds of silence. 15 minutes of cleaning. 22,000 people waiting, and every second of that wait was a test. A test of whether the machine would bend. A test of whether one person could stop the momentum. A test of whether safety could ever outweigh spectacle. Michael passed that test, but not everyone was happy about it. In the wings, the tour manager was doing math. 15 minutes lost. 3 songs cut from the encore. A potential fine from the city. A call from the insurance company. A dozen emails tomorrow morning. But he also knew this. If Michael hadn't stopped, and a dancer had fallen, and that fall had been caught on camera, the lawsuit would have buried them all. So he swallowed the frustration, and keyed his headset. We're good. Let's finish strong. Michael finished the song. The lights dropped. The crowd roared. He walked to the front of the stage, mic in hand, and looked out at the sea of faces. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for understanding. And thank you for being the kind of crowd that knows when to hold still. That's love. That's respect. That's why we're here. The lights came up for the encore. The band launched into the opening riff. Michael spun into position, and this time his foot held. The floor was clean. The stage was safe. And 22,000 people danced with him, knowing they'd just witnessed something most concerts never show, the moment when the artist chose them over everything else. But wait, don't skip this part. Because the story doesn't end when the lights go down. It ends in the dressing room. 40 minutes later, when Michael sat on a folding chair, ice pack on his shoulder, and Carla handed him a bottle of water. You okay? She asked. I'm fine, Michael said. But that floor wasn't. And if I hadn't gone down first, someone else would have, maybe harder, maybe worse. The venue's not happy. They're saying you broke the rhythm, cost them time. Michael looked up. And if someone had broken a bone, what would they say then? Carla didn't answer. She didn't need to. Because they both knew the truth. The venue cared about the schedule. Michael cared about the people. And when those two things collided, there was only one choice. He stood up, wincing as his shoulder pulled. Next time we check the floor before the pyro, not after, and we make sure every venue knows. If there's a safety risk, we stop. I don't care what the contract says. I don't care what the promoter wants. We stop. Carla nodded. I'll put it in the rider. Good. Michael walked to the door, then paused. And Carla, thank you for not fighting me on it. I wouldn't dream of it, she said. You were right. One slip, one fall, one decision. The 22,000 people would never forget. The next morning, a local paper ran a short piece. Jackson concert delayed 15 minutes due to stage safety check. The promoter issued a statement. Minor technical issue resolved without incident. The venue said nothing. But the people who were there, they told a different story. They told the story of the night Michael fell, got up and stopped the world to make sure no one else would. Because that's the thing about live performance. Everyone remembers the spectacle, the lights, the moves, the hits. But the people who were in that arena on that night, they remember the silence, the 8 seconds, the moment when the music died, and Michael chose safety over showmanship. They remember the way he sat on the edge of the stage and explained, like a teacher, like a friend, why stopping mattered. They remember the way the crew moved with purpose, the way the crowd stayed calm, the way the machine bent, just for a moment, to let humanity through. And that's the real story. Not the fall, not the delay, but the choice. The moment when one person looked at a system built on momentum and spectacle and said, "No, not like this. Not if it hurts someone." That's the moment that changed the night. That's the moment that mattered. Michael finished the tour. The fall became a footnote in the production reports. The venue updated its pyro protocols. The crew started checking floors twice before every show. And somewhere, in a box of old tour documents, there's a memo from Carla to the production team. Stage safety checks are non-negotiable. If the artist calls a stop, we stop. No exceptions. That memo is still in the writer today, not because of a lawsuit, not because of a fine, but because one night, in front of 22,000 people, Michael fell, and then stood up and made the call that proved safety isn't a suggestion, it's a standard. One slip, one fall, 8 seconds of silence, and a decision that echoed long after the lights went down.